Studio, Lost Cowboys. It was quite an adventure for you because you were, as I said, working, was it Thursday nights?
Thursday day.
Thursday, as a gynaecologist, and then playing presumably at night time, country and western. So when did the idea of writing a book about something called Lost Cowboys come through?
Well, the idea came through first as a reason to go south, to go to South America, because like most people in Britain, I had no idea really about South America beyond, I suppose, earthquakes and dictators and football crowds. And I started to read about it. This happened when I was filming in Mexico, and I got the whiff in my nose that all the stories we'd have from Hollywood were exactly what you'd expect from Hollywood. They were propaganda, and that the real cowboys were actually started from the Rio Grande and not stopped. And the more I read, the more I found out that, of course, cowboys came into South America with Columbus. There were no horses before Columbus came. Indians walked, and that's the thing that I think is a penny that never dropped for me and for a lot of people. And because Columbus brought them in, the whole culture of cowboys is Hispanic. You know, it's the Spaniards who used to ride on horses and herd cattle. So given that Columbus brought the cattle and the cowboys and the horses into the Americas, that whole culture then seeped out. Within 50 years, the place was covered with wild horses, with wild cattle. And then the cowboys started to develop. And you know, when you were at school, you must have heard of gauchos. Yeah. And I heard of them too. But all I knew about them was they had these three things called bolas, these three stones on a piece of rawhide. And instead of lassos, they used to catch them round animals' legs to lasso them. And then when I started to research, I found that gauchos actually were massively important in Argentina, and they were more the national identity of Argentina than cowboys were to America. So I was off and running then, and as I did the research, it became more and more obvious that if I wanted to go to South America and wanted to understand this thing that happened 500 years ago, where these two cultures clashed, and you got people who were called mestizo, mixed, that if I looked at cowboys, I'd begin to understand that essence of mestizo.
But why cowboys, Hank? I mean, what is it with you still that hankers, forgive this awful yes, Hank, that wants to go out and find out about where the cowboys originated, how it came to be, what Hollywood has portrayed and what it should portray, all this kind of stuff. What is it about them?
Well, first of all, I like to learn things. I always want to know a little bit of truth, and I find out, as maybe you do, you know, as you go on through life, you find all the things you were taught at school were not so. Now, history particularly was not so. What we were taught at English history was not so. We were told fibs.
But is it, hang on, is it because you're a country and western singer?
Yeah, that's a connection, isn't it?
Is it because, so
that's a connection with cowboys.
But it harks right back then, doesn't it, to something that happened to you either in your childhood or as you were growing up, which made you want to become a country and western singer. I mean, here you are, you could have become, you are a gynaecologist, you could have been a full-time gynaecologist, but you chose to go off into
the country and western
area.
It's a kind of a sidetrack. It happened that I met a man called Graham Parsons, who was in a band in the 60s called The Byrds, and who turned a lot of people, including the Stones, Rolling Stones, onto country music. Before I met him, I thought country music was crap. I really didn't like it. It was maudlin, sentimental, you know, the standard British attitude to it. And then he taught me that it was actually great soul music. He did the same for Keith Richards. That's why they wrote songs like Honky Tonk Women, which is a country song. So that's a sidetrack. No, it was to do with Saturday morning pictures. It was to do with cowboys on the screen. You know, I've never been a real sort of cowboy train spotter, but, you know, they were wild, weren't they? They were heroes. They were frontiersmen. They were on horses. That was the important thing. And they had this kind of freedom. And what Hollywood did was got this myth of the wild man on horseback and took it for their own and turned it into a white Anglo-speaking cowboy. Well, those weren't the real cowboys. So that's the bit that I got into, was to find out who were the real ones, the ones who were lost to me. Because John Wayne wasn't the first, he was the last.
And you started in Patagonia.
And I started in Patagonia.
Right down to the very tip of South America, and you worked your way up and found Scots settlers there, and Welsh settlers there, and learned and ate the most foul stuff, it seems to me, on the way up.
Disgusting stuff. Disgusting but delicious. No, I'm a carnivore anyway, and in Argentina the meat is everything they tell you. It is beautiful stuff. It's good, organic food. But they do eat all the offal as well. They eat everything. So, you know, I always like to do everything twice, just to check it out. And so I did eat all the things. Things like intestines I found horrible the first time, but the second time when they were cooked very crispily, they were delicious, but I'm sorry.
I know.
I won't go on.
It sounds too much. I mean, and in the middle of it all, you picked up on this business of Pope John Paul II being a cowboy, basically, deep down. What on earth is that all about? I mean, because he wears cowboy boots? Because he's a closet cowboy.
I think absolutely, he's a closet cowboy. It first happened when I was down in Santiago, in Chile, and I went to the Museum of the Cowboy, and there, on the wall, there was a picture of His Holiness wearing a poncho called a manta, which is a Chilean poncho. And I spoke to the woman. She said, "Oh yes, el señor is Papa. He is a cowboy in his heart." And then I went to Argentina to a big cowboy centre called Salta. And there they had a 24-hour guard of cowboys around him when he visited. And they had a line of cowboys from the airport to his residence. And they gave him the whole gear, the hat, the jacket, the bombachos, which are the big baggy pants. And so gradually I found every kind of big cowboy centre I went to, the Pope had been there before. And the crowning thing at the end was when I got to San Antonio, which is where the Alamo is in Texas, I go to Paris Hatters, which is the place where President Johnson's gone, and there's that classic picture of Prince Charles and Prince Andrew at Calgary Stampede with their Stetsons on. And they said, "Oh sure, yeah, we got your King Charles, we got him 6 Stetsons." And then I looked along, and there's a picture of the Pope, and he's got a white Stetson, and he's just putting it on.
And he loved it, obviously.
And he loved it. So yeah, that was the clincher.
Okay, I mean, Hank Wangford. It's a pretty difficult name to get your tongue around, isn't it, really? I mean, where did it all happen? How did Hank Wangford happen in the middle of Dr Sam Hutt?
I'd already got into country music, and I was writing country music, and I'd worked in Canada, and I'd been sort of really immersed in all that. And in 1976, I was back in England, and as it happened, my girlfriend had quite rightly left me and married my roommate, you know, but...
a sad story.
Very sad.
Yeah.
And as those things happen, you always think that it's not your fault, and you had nothing to do with it, and how dare she, and isn't it rotten? You feel sorry for yourself, you feel self-pity. So I was sitting in a pub in a place called Wangford, feeling self-pity. And Wangford is on the A12 just before you get to Lowestoft. And as I was drinking, suddenly, well, Hank came to me, or Hank Wangford came to me as a great name for somebody who really pities himself, you know, who really gets down there and doesn't hold back.
And so you have your Hank Wangford and you have your Sam Hutt. And do you feel happier with Hank?
One, and they fit into different places. If I go to Romania and I work as a doctor, I don't call myself Dr Wangford, but I do get letters from other doctors saying, "Dear Dr Wangford, could you see Miss Scott, please?"
Do you actually go to Romania and look at people there?
Yeah.
Women?
Yeah.
How do you manage to do it when you're working when you're doing everything else?
Well, I have to take time off. You know, I have to take a week or 10 days off. I was back there 2 weeks ago because in 1990 a friend came and I was doing the Edinburgh Festival, and she'd said that she'd gone over for the Comedy Store to do stuff for the Children's Hospital, and she had spoken to gynecologists who said, for God's sake, contraception was illegal under Ceausescu. That's why we saw all the orphanages. That's why, because women were forced to become pregnant and either have abortions or have children. Could you come over and help us set up a contraceptive service? And I said, you know, sure.
But how do you switch off? I mean, if you're involved in something as important as that, you can't just turn your back on it and say, "I'm off to play country and western tonight, thanks very much," or next week, or "I'm on tour for a month and I'll be back later on." You do.
I mean, ultimately, you have to teach the people to do it themselves. You can't do good works and do it for them. The only way you can do anything like that anywhere in the world is to teach people the skills and let them get on with it in their way. I mean, it's big-headed to think you can go in and solve problems. You can't, because they'll all collapse as soon as you leave. You have to teach people, so that's what I do. And that's what I'll do in July. I'll take 2 more nurses back and teach some more new nurses for the clinic.
In Romania?
In Romania, yeah.
Okay, so Romania is very important in your life right now in that sense.
Has been for the last 5 years, yeah.
Yes, and so when you're talking about publishing a book, and you have to you obviously promote your book, and you have to go out and sing as well, it must be pretty tough. I mean, it must be, organising yourself, getting yourself from place to place, doing all that kind of thing.
Yes, but you're going to New York on the QE2 next week. You're a busy person too. We're all busy, you know, and my busyness is put into certain little boxes, and I can handle it.
And you're able
I've got
to do
energy,
that.
you know.
I know you have. Yeah. You've also got calluses on your finger.
I've got calluses on my finger, I know.
1, 2, 3. They're really hard, aren't they?
Well, it's playing all that fantastic guitar that I play.
I mean, when you examine women, you've got to be very careful.
No, that's not the hand. It's all right.
Is that hand?
Okay. Yes, that's all right.
With your long fingernails?
No, they're all right.
One fingernail, two fingernails.
No, they're all right.
Yes.
All right.
And that's with playing the steel wire.
This is just a habit. No, but because I use a pick. But that's playing the steel wire gives you the calluses.
All right. A special guitar?
No.
No? And a guitar?
Acoustic guitar, yes.
Okay, well, we're going to hear you sing. We've got a real treat coming up because...
We've got a world premiere coming up, actually. I'm going to have a go at doing a new one.
Right here in the studio.
Right here in front of your eyes and ears, ma'am.
I am pleased to hear it. Your book is out in Europe shortly, in Germany and elsewhere.
Yeah,
and
but it's out in England in a week or two. It's already in the shops.
What's Lost Cowboys in German, then?
I'm not sure. I think I have a German colleague. I think it's something like Die verlorenen Cowboys, which would be the forgotten cowboys, which is actually good and clear.
Sounds good to me. Yeah. Hank, thank you.
Thank you, Selina.
That's all for tonight.
I met an old man out on the town. I was straight, he was falling around. I asked him why he was driven to drink. He opened one eye, said, "Oh, what do you think?" Well, he pulled a ring from a can of brew. He looked right through me, said, "Anything will do." He threw back the brew, looked up and said, "One day you're gonna wake up dead. Well, I give you the whiskey, pass you the blow. If you wanna catch up, you got a way to go. Might as well party, get out of your head. One day you're gonna wake up dead. One day you're gonna wake up dead." He said, "Don't follow rules, they're a waste of time. You'll miss a life if you toe the line. Moderation only makes you live too long. Wanna do it all from the bottle to the bone. You don't hurt no one except yourself, as long as God is looking after the national health. And every single time you fall into your bed, one day you're gonna wake up dead. Well, I give you the whiskey, pass you the blow. If you wanna catch up, you got a way to go. Might as well party, get out of your head. One day you're gonna wake up dead. Well, I give you the whiskey, pass you the blow. If you wanna catch up, you got a way to go. Might as well party, get out of your head. One day you're gonna wake up dead. One day you're gonna wake up dead.